So, what happens now that Prince Andrew will no longer be known as the Duke of York? That bombshell from Prince Andrew stepping back from his public duties. Andrew releasing a statement saying, "It has become clear to me over the last few days. Something unprecedented is happening at Buckingham Palace right now. Prince Andrew has made a decision that nobody saw coming. He's stepping away from every royal title and responsibility he once held. The prince announcing he is now stepping away from his royal duties for the foreseeable future." The atmosphere surrounding the royal residence has transformed into something almost unrecognizable. What everyone's been hearing in fragments and whispers has finally been confirmed through DNA testing, and the implications are staggering. This isn't just another royal controversy that will fade with time. This is a moment that rewrites what we thought we knew about the Duke of York. The media has gathered in unprecedented numbers, their equipment creating a wall of cameras and microphones outside those famous iron gates. Inside those historic walls, the family is facing something they've never had to confront quite like this before. The statement they're preparing isn't just another press release, it's a reckoning, the package that changed everything. Picture a typical Tuesday morning at the palace, rain tapping against the windows, staff members moving through their daily routines with practiced efficiency. Among the usual delivery of official correspondence and formal invitations, one item stood out, though not because it looked important. Quite the opposite, it was remarkably plain. A simple brown envelope, slightly damp from the weather, with no identifying marks or official seals. Just a handwritten address directing it to the private secretary's office. The courier who delivered it vanished before anyone could ask questions when the envelope was finally opened. What tumbled out sent shock waves through the entire administrative structure. First came an old photograph, not a professional portrait, but a candid snapshot showing Prince Andrew in his younger days dressed in naval uniform. Standing beside him was a woman whose face had never appeared in any official royal documentation. The magnificent work that has been done down here by not only the troops but also the Navy. Significantly, this has been a naval operation. They looked comfortable together, natural with genuine smiles captured in a moment that clearly meant something. The second item was even more unsettling. A carefully preserved lock of hair, sealed in glass and tied with a faded ribbon. The kind of keepsake someone holds on to when they can't bear to let go completely. And finally, a note. Just a few words scrolled on paper. The truth exists. Science can prove it. No demands, no threats, no signature. Just an invitation to acknowledge what had been hidden. To understand how this all connects, you have to go back to the early 1980s. Prince Andrew was young then, serving his time in the Royal Navy, stationed at various ports across the Mediterranean. Those who served alongside him remember a different version of the man, less burdened by protocol, more willing to laugh, almost ordinary in his interactions with fellow servicemen. During one extended training exercise near Gibraltar, something happened that was never supposed to make it into any official record. He encountered someone at a small waterfront establishment where officers would stop during their limited free time. She wasn't from aristocratic circles or diplomatic families. She simply worked there, serving refreshments and exchanging pleasantries with the steady stream of naval personnel. Their first conversation happened by chance. He'd left something behind, and she returned it with a friendly comment. What developed from that small interaction grew into something more significant than either probably anticipated. They began spending time together whenever his duties allowed, finding spaces away from the scrutiny that followed him everywhere else. According to people who witnessed this period, Andrew seemed genuinely different during those months, more relaxed, more himself. One former shipmate recalled years later that it was the only time he'd seen the prince act like he'd forgotten about royal expectations entirely. But of course, those expectations never really disappear. When the naval exercises concluded and Andrew's ship moved on to other assignments, communication between them continued briefly through written letters. But royal obligations have a way of overwhelming personal connections. The letters became less frequent, then stopped altogether. She withdrew from public view shortly afterward, relocating to southern France, according to those who knew her. What nobody realized at the time was that she carried with her more than just memories and broken promises. She was pregnant. She made the conscious decision to raise her child away from the spotlight, telling only a handful of trusted friends that the father had been someone important who could never acknowledge them. To protect her daughter from the complications of such a claim, she kept the full truth locked away. Decades passed, the child grew up hearing vague references to a father in uniform, but never understanding the complete picture. It wasn't until she was an adult, sorting through her mother's belongings after her passing, that she discovered fragments of evidence, photographs, letters with recognizable initials, details that didn't add up to a normal story. The more she investigated, the more impossible it seemed. Yet, the evidence kept pointing in one direction. Eventually, she decided that truth mattered more than comfort, and that's when she reached out. Crisis management behind closed doors. When that envelope's contents were confirmed as authentic rather than elaborate forgeries, Buckingham Palace went into a mode rarely seen by outsiders. Emergency meetings convened in rooms designed specifically for sensitive situations. Senior advisors, legal experts, and trusted confidants gathered around polished tables, speaking in hushed tones about a problem that threatened to spiral beyond their control. The usual strategies weren't working. This wasn't a situation they could simply outlast or deflect with carefully worded non-statements. The evidence was tangible, testable, undeniable. Security teams traced every possible lead trying to identify who had sent the package. But every trail went cold. It was as if the information had materialized from nowhere. Meanwhile, outside those walls, journalists were beginning to sense something significant was happening. Palace activity had changed in subtle but noticeable ways. Unusual numbers of legal consultants were seen entering through private entrances. Phone calls that would normally be returned promptly were going unanswered. Royal watchers who'd spent years studying the family's patterns recognized the signs of something major brewing. Prince Andrew himself had retreated from public view. Associates described him as oscillating between dismissive anger and visible anxiety. "This is manufactured drama," he reportedly insisted to one aide, but those closest to him noticed the uncertainty in his voice, as if he was trying to convince himself as much as anyone else. The debate among advisors grew heated. One faction argued for immediate transparency, get ahead of the story before losing all control of the narrative. Another group insisted that the monarchy's strength had always come from maintaining dignified silence in the face of speculation. Once you start responding to every claim, they argued, you legitimize the process of questioning royal authority. Behind all these tactical discussions loomed one constant concern: the Queen herself. Her health had been fragile, and doctors had specifically warned against unnecessary stress. So there was growing concern that something was wrong, and that the Queen was not in the best of health. But eventually, the truth couldn't be kept from her any longer. When she was briefed on the situation, witnesses described a moment of profound silence before she asked a simple question that nobody wanted to answer directly. What does the evidence show, the test that ended all doubt? Eventually, there was no avoiding it. The only way to definitively resolve the question was through scientific testing. Legal representatives made contact with the woman making the claim. Arrangements were made under the strictest confidentiality. Samples were collected, and everything was sent to an independent laboratory with no royal connections. The waiting period was excruciating for everyone involved. Days stretched into weeks as the analysis was conducted, verified, and documented. During this time, the palace maintained its public silence, but internally preparations were being made for both possible outcomes. When the results finally arrived, they were delivered to a private room where only the most essential people had been allowed. The envelope was opened by the royal legal advisor, his hands steady, but his expression tense. As he read the findings, the color drained from his face. The probability of biological relation 97%. In scientific terms, that's as close to absolute certainty as testing can provide. There was no ambiguity, no room for alternative interpretation. The DNA didn't lie. Prince Andrew sat motionless as the results were explained to him. For a long moment, nobody spoke. The ticking of an antique clock on the wall became the only sound in the room. When the legal advisor finally broke the silence, his voice was barely above a whisper. "There's no question about accuracy." Within hours, despite strict confidentiality agreements and limited knowledge of the results, information began leaking. Perhaps it was inevitable. Secrets of this magnitude have their own gravity, pulling people toward revelation. A trusted insider mentioned something to a journalist they'd worked with for years. That journalist confirmed details with another source. By morning, news organizations were running with carefully worded headlines suggesting that biological evidence had been verified. The palace press office was overwhelmed. Phones rang continuously, with reporters demanding confirmation or denial. Every major media outlet scrambled to get the story first to find the angle. Nobody else had discovered yet. Television networks cleared their schedules, preparing for breaking news that seemed increasingly imminent. Outside the palace gates, the scene transformed into something resembling a carnival of curiosity and chaos. Camera crews from around the world positioned themselves for the best view. Reporters did stand-up segments with the palace as their backdrop, speculating endlessly about what would happen next. Helicopters circled overhead, capturing aerial footage that would be replayed millions of times. Social media exploded with theories, opinions, and debates. Within 24 hours, the story had become one of the most discussed topics globally. Everyone had an opinion about what the palace should do, what Prince Andrew should say, whether the woman making the claim deserved recognition or privacy, or both. The advisors knew they were running out of time. Every hour of silence made the situation worse, allowed more speculation to solidify into assumed fact. But they were also acutely aware that any official statement would be dissected and debated for generations. This wasn't just a press release. It was a historic document. Behind closed doors, debates continued about how to frame the revelation. Should they apologize, express regret, offer explanation? Each option carried risks and implications that extended far beyond this single situation. Every word would be analyzed for what it said about the monarchy's values, its transparency, its relevance in the modern age. The world stops watching. When credible sources confirmed that DNA testing had produced a definitive match, the media response was overwhelming. Every major news organization led with the story. Regular programming was interrupted worldwide. The confirmation that Prince Andrew had a biological daughter unknown to the public until now became the only story that mattered. Television analysts pulled up archived footage from Andrew's naval years, freezing frames and pointing out locations where he'd been stationed. Investigative journalists began tracing the woman's life, interviewing people who'd known her mother, trying to piece together a timeline that made sense. Social media platforms saw unprecedented engagement as millions shared, commented, and debated every new detail. The public reaction was complex and divided. Some people expressed sympathy for everyone involved. For the woman who'd lived with this secret, for the daughter who'd grown up never knowing her father's identity, even for Prince Andrew, facing consequences of choices made decades ago. Others were furious, demanding accountability and questioning what else the royal family might be hiding. Parliamentary members began making statements, carefully avoiding direct criticism while calling for reflection and modernization of royal institutions. Opinion polls showed trust in the monarchy dropping to levels not seen in years. The revelation had touched something deeper than scandal. It raised fundamental questions about transparency, privilege, and whether ancient institutions could survive in an age where DNA tests can append carefully constructed narratives in neighborhoods. The answers are closer than you think. Conversations centered on the same questions. If this was hidden for so long, what else might be concealed? Does the monarchy still serve its purpose? Should there be more oversight, more accountability? The story had transcended gossip and become a genuine cultural moment of reckoning. Inside the palace, the weight of these questions pressed down on everyone. The realization was setting in that remaining silent was no longer a viable option. The truth had outgrown their ability to contain it. Something had to be said, and it had to be said soon. Music, the statement that changed everything. After a week of intense speculation and global attention, the announcement finally came. At noon, a brief notice appeared on the official palace communication channels. An emergency press briefing scheduled for 3:00 that afternoon. The message was intentionally minimal, but its implications were clear. The monarchy was about to address the situation directly. News of the upcoming statement spread instantly. Every journalist in London converged on the palace. The designated press hall filled beyond capacity with cameras covering every angle and microphones, creating a forest of recording equipment. Outside, crowds gathered in remarkable numbers, some supporting the royal family, others demanding transparency, all wanting to witness this historic moment. At exactly 3:00, a senior palace spokesperson entered the room. The sudden silence was absolute. Every eye focused on the podium bearing the royal crest. The spokesperson's composure was evident, but so was the gravity of what was about to be said. The statement began with careful acknowledgement. After comprehensive review and independent expert analysis, the palace confirms that recent DNA findings are scientifically accurate. These results establish a biological relationship between Prince Andrew and the individual identified in recent reports. The words hung in the air, each one carrying enormous weight. This wasn't speculation or rumor. This was official royal acknowledgement of something previously denied through silence. The spokesperson continued, Prince Andrew recognizes these findings and expresses deep regret that this matter remained unrest for such an extensive period. The royal family acknowledges the pain caused by years of uncertainty and extends support to the person affected by this situation. The statement emphasized the monarchy's commitment to transparency and integrity, requesting privacy for all parties as the family addresses the matter appropriately. Then, almost as quickly as it began, the briefing concluded. No questions were taken, no additional details provided. The spokesperson exited, leaving the room in stunned silence that erupted moments later into shouted questions that went unanswered. a daughter's perspective. For her entire life, she'd been an ordinary person living a quiet existence far from the spotlight. She'd grown up with incomplete answers about her father, knowing only what her mother felt safe sharing, that he'd been someone important, someone kind, but someone who could never be part of their lives. She'd built her own identity around that absence, learning to be whole despite the missing piece. Now suddenly that absence had a name, a face, a royal title. The privacy she'd always known was gone, replaced by global attention she'd never sought. When she agreed to give her first interview, she did so with remarkable composure, determined to tell her story in her own words before it was told for her. The interview setting was deliberately simple. No elaborate staging, no dramatic lighting, just a conversation between two people about something profoundly personal that happened to have global implications. She wore modest clothing and a single piece of jewelry that had belonged to her mother. When asked about her childhood, and the moment she began suspecting her royal connection, she spoke with quiet strength. Her mother had always prioritized protecting her from scandal rather than pursuing recognition or financial gain. The truth was shared not as something to exploit, but as something she deserved to know about herself. I sent letters, she explained, to various offices and organizations, hoping someone would help me verify what I was beginning to suspect. None were answered. For a long time, I thought perhaps I was creating connections that didn't exist, but the DNA results had eliminated all doubt. What she'd suspected for years was now confirmed by science. Still, her response wasn't what many expected. She expressed no interest in titles, wealth, or formal acknowledgement within royal structures. Her goal was simpler and somehow more profound. She wanted the truth to stand on its own for her mother's memory, for her own sense of identity, and for others who'd believed her when dismissal was easier. "I don't carry anger," she said, her voice steady. "People protect what they love in ways they think are necessary, but truth has its own timing, and when it arrives, it creates possibility for healing." The interview resonated deeply with viewers worldwide. Her grace in the face of decades of denial, her lack of bitterness despite legitimate grievances, her focus on healing rather than revenge, it all created a narrative that softened even the harshest critics' responses. For a moment, the story stopped being about scandal and became about something more human, a person seeking to understand where they came from in the aftermath of both the official statement and the daughter's interview. An unusual atmosphere settled over Britain. The initial shock began, giving way to reflection. Buckingham Palace, which had weathered countless challenges over centuries, now faced something different, not a threat to its existence, but a challenge to its methods. Palace lights dimmed as London settled into night, but conversations about this revelation continued across the globe. What began with a mysterious envelope and ended with official confirmation had fundamentally altered how people viewed the royal family, not just as symbols of tradition and continuity, but as human beings capable of mistakes, secrets, and eventually honesty. Questions linger. Will there be other revelations hidden in palace archives? How will this affect the monarchy's relationship with the public going forward? What does this mean for how royal history is understood and told? These answers will unfold over time, shaped by decisions made in quiet rooms and public statements yet to come. This is history unfolding in real time. The gates of Buckingham Palace remain standing, but what they guard has fundamentally changed. Because once truth escapes those gates, no amount of protocol or tradition can put it back. And the world, having witnessed this moment of royal reckoning, will never stop asking what other truths might still be waiting to emerge. Stay engaged with this evolving story. The implications will ripple through royal history for generations. Noticed more than once. While the public remained unaware of the deeper details, insiders had their suspicions. There were moments, glances, and conversations that made some people wonder. Still, in the world of royalty, where secrets are kept tight, an image means everything. No one dared to challenge the narrative too loudly. Questioning such powerful figures could come with heavy consequences. When Camilla gave birth to her son, Tom Parker B.S., it was naturally assumed that Andrew was the father. After all, he was her husband. There was no reason, at least publicly, to think otherwise. Tom was raised as a Parker B.S. and carried that name with pride. He attended good schools, made public appearances with his parents, and was seen as the next generation of a well-respected family. No one thought to ask questions, or if they did, they kept them to themselves. But as the years passed, some people began to notice small things. Family, friends, and palace aides started to quietly observe how Tom didn't look exactly like Andrew. There were slight differences in subtle features that didn't quite add up. At first, it seemed like nothing more than a coincidence. After all, genetics can be strange, and not all children look exactly like their parents. But the whispers didn't go away. They began to grow louder in private circles. The idea that Tom might not be Andrew's biological son became a quiet rumor, one that floated just below the surface for years. Still, no one dared bring it out into the open. In the royal world, privacy is guarded fiercely, and any talk of scandal is quickly shut down. The palace has always had ways of protecting its image, and this was no different. So the truth, if there was one, remained hidden, wrapped in layers of silence, tradition, and fear. For decades, nothing was confirmed, and life went on as if everything was normal. But secrets, no matter how carefully they are buried, have a strange way of rising to the surface. The modern world is different. Cameras are everywhere, the media is more aggressive, and science, especially DNA testing, has made it nearly impossible to keep certain truths locked away. The royal family, once protected by tradition and loyalty, now faces a world where one leaked document or one unexpected discovery can change everything. And when the first pieces of this hidden story started to come out, the silence was broken. The door that had been shut so tightly for so long finally opened, and once it did, there was no turning back. The courtroom bombshell. DNA doesn't lie. The day started like any other in the courtroom. Tom Parker B.S. walked in confidently, dressed neatly in a sharp suit. His hair was tidy and his steps were steady. He looked calm, collected, and ready. He thought he was prepared for what was going to happen. After all, he was there to deal with some family history matters and legal papers, things he believed would be routine. But little did he know, this day would change everything. What he didn't expect was the shocking news that was about to be revealed, news that would shake the very foundation of his life. The courtroom was silent as the judge took seat and opened the files. Everyone waited quietly, the tension in the air almost visible. No one knew what was coming, but everyone could feel that something important was about to be said. Then the judge began to read the DNA test results. The words came slowly at first, as if the judge was trying to prepare the room for what was next. And then suddenly, the truth hit everyone like a lightning bolt. The DNA test showed something no one was ready for. Tom's biological father was not Andrew Parker B.S. The room filled with gasps and murmurs. People looked at each other in shock, unable to believe what they were hearing. Some thought it must be a mistake. Could the test be wrong? Was there some kind of mix-up? But the papers in the judge's hand were clear. The test was thorough, done by experts and backed by undeniable evidence. It was real. There was no denying it. The man Tom had always called father was not his biological dad. For Tom, the news was like a thunderclap. At first, he stood still, frozen like a statue. His mind must have been racing, trying to make sense of what he had just heard. Slowly, the color drained from his face. His strong and steady demeanor crumbled as reality sank in. The shock was too much. His legs weakened. He wobbled slightly, gripping the edge of the table to keep his balance, but it wasn't enough. Then, in front of everyone, Tom collapsed. The courtroom erupted into chaos. Cameras flashed wildly, capturing every moment of this unexpected collapse. People rushed forward to help him, friends, security guards, and even strangers. Royal Security quickly moved in to keep the situation under control, making sure Tom was safe and the scene stayed calm. It wasn't just a surprising court announcement, it was a moment of heartbreak, a public breakdown of a man who had just learned that his whole life might have been based on a lie. All his memories, all his family stories suddenly felt uncertain. The ground beneath him seemed to vanish as Tom was helped back to his feet. A powerful question filled the room and soon the entire world. If Andrew Parker B.S. is not the real father, then who is? This question stirred up a storm of rumors, guesses, and speculation. Everyone wanted to know the answer. The mystery suddenly became the center of attention, a secret no longer locked behind palace doors. People everywhere wondered how this revelation would affect the royal family, Camilla's legacy, and the future of those involved. For Tom, the truth was more than just DNA. It was about identity, family, and trust. It was about understanding where he truly came from. And now, with this bombshell dropped in court, there was no turning back. The truth was out, and the story was only just beginning. Who's the real father? Clues and suspicions. Now that the shocking truth has come out in court, the question on everyone's mind is clear. Who is Tom Parker B.S. real father? This is not just a simple question anymore. It has turned into one of the biggest mysteries surrounding the royal family in recent years. Everyone wants answers. The media, the public, and even royal watchers are all waiting eagerly for the story to unfold. One of the first names that many people whisper about is King Charles himself. After all, Charles and Camilla's relationship has been well known, especially in recent decades. Even when both were married to other people, the bond between Charles and Camilla was strong and often talked about in public and private circles. Could it be that their love story started much earlier than anyone had guessed, maybe even before Tom was born? Some royal experts think the timeline fits. They point out that in the years leading up to Tom's birth, Charles and Camilla were often seen together and were rumored to be very close. There are old letters between them, photographs showing them sharing private moments, and friends who have said the two seemed unable to stay apart. According to these insiders, their relationship was more than just friendship. It was a deep and secret love. So, could Tom be the child of this forbidden romance? The idea has captured the imagination of many, and some believe it explains the mystery perfectly, but the story doesn't end there. Not everyone agrees that Charles is the father. Other rumors are swirling in the background, whispers of a different man entirely. This man, unlike Charles, is not royal or well known to the public. He was close to Camilla during that time, but kept his presence quiet and private. Some say he was a trusted friend, a secret lover, someone who had an affair with Camilla that very few people knew about until now. This possibility adds even more layers to the mystery. Who could this man be? Why has he stayed out of the spotlight? And most importantly, is he the real father? With so many theories floating around, it's hard to know what to believe. The palace, for its part, has remained silent. No official statements or responses have been made about the DNA test or the identity of Tom's real father. This silence speaks volumes. It suggests that behind the closed doors of the royal family, people are working hard to manage the situation and protect their reputation. They know that if this scandal becomes public in full detail, it could cause even bigger problems for everyone involved. The royal family has always been careful to keep their private matters private, and this case seems no different. Still, the public isn't waiting for the palace to speak. Social media is buzzing, news outlets are reporting non-stop, and gossip columns are filled with speculation. People everywhere are trying to piece together clues and figure out what happened. The guessing game has begun in full force. Everyone wants to know the truth, and with modern science on their side, it might not be long before all questions are answered. DNA tests today are incredibly accurate. They can prove or disprove family connections with almost 100% certainty. So, while the palace may try to keep the details quiet for now, it's likely only a matter of time before the full story is revealed. When that happens, The impact could be huge, not just for Tom, but for Camilla, King Charles, and the entire royal family. For now, the mystery remains: who is the real father? Is it King Charles, the man who shared a deep and complicated love with Camilla? Or is it the unknown figure, a quiet shadow from Camilla's past? Or perhaps the truth is something even more surprising? Whatever the answer, one thing is certain: this revelation will change everything we thought we knew about the royal family's history and secrets. What this means for Queen Camilla and the monarchy. For Queen Camilla, this news is far more than just a private matter. It is a serious threat to everything she has worked so hard to achieve in her life and role within the royal family. Becoming queen was never an easy journey for her. From the very start, many people were skeptical and even hostile toward her because of her past, especially her long history with King Charles. A lot of people blamed Camilla for the breakdown of Charles's marriage to Princess Diana. It is announced from Buckingham Palace that with regret, the Prince and Princess of Wales have decided to separate. Their Royal Highnesses have no plans to divorce, and their constitutional positions are unaffected. Who was loved by millions around the world. The public's opinion was often harsh, and Camilla faced many years of criticism and gossip. But Camilla didn't give up. She worked quietly and steadily to rebuild her image. She showed up at royal events, participated in charity work, and stood firmly beside Charles, supporting him as they carried out their royal duties together. Slowly but surely, public opinion began to change. People saw her not just as the woman from the scandalous past, but as someone dedicated and sincere in her work. Step by step, she won respect and acceptance. It was a tough road, but Camilla managed to build a new reputation as a strong, supportive figure in the royal family. Now, all of that hard work is at serious risk. With this DNA drama exploding in public, everything could come crashing down. Suddenly, people are starting to ask difficult questions again. Was Camilla hiding a major secret all this time? Did she keep this truth from the public and even her own family? And even more worrying, was the royal family involved in keeping this secret hidden? The palace has always been careful about protecting its image, but now with this story out in the open, the trust that people had in them could be shaken. This scandal is not just about one person. It could affect the entire royal family and the monarchy itself. Over the last few years, the royal family has faced many challenges. It is the statement that echoed throughout the world. Kate Middleton, now diagnosed with cancer and undergoing chemotherapy. There have been public disputes, interviews that revealed private family problems, and accusations that shook the image of the monarchy. For example, Prince Harry's interviews and Meghan Markle's statements caused huge waves around the world, exposing cracks in the royal family's image and causing many to question its future. People today are tired of secrets and scandals. They want honesty and transparency from those in power, including the royals. The public expects the monarchy to be a symbol of integrity and stability, especially in times of uncertainty. When secrets like this DNA revelation come to light, it damages the trust people have in the royal family. Trust is one of the hardest things to build and the easiest to lose. If the monarchy doesn't handle this crisis carefully and openly, it could lead to even bigger problems. Public opinion could turn sharply against the royals, and calls for reform or even abolition of monarchy might grow louder. The monarchy relies heavily on public support to maintain its position, and without that its future becomes uncertain. For Queen Camilla personally, this scandal could be devastating. It not only threatens her public image, but also her position within the royal family. It raises questions about her personal life and about the legacy she hoped to leave as queen. DNA results challenge everything she thought was private and safe. Facing the public scrutiny along with the pressure from inside the palace will not be easy for her. The royal family must now decide how to respond. Will they come forward with the truth, or will they continue to try and keep things quiet? Either choice comes with risks. Being open might hurt the family in the short term, but could build trust in the long run. Staying silent might delay the damage but could backfire if more secrets come out. No matter what happens, this scandal marks a new and uncertain chapter for Queen Camilla and the monarchy. It reminds everyone that even the most powerful families can have hidden stories, and that the truth has a way of coming out when least expected. The emotional toll, how Tom is coping behind the scenes while the world watches the headlines and talks about the shocking royal drama. It's easy to forget the person right in the middle of all this Tom Parker BS. Imagine what it must be like to grow up thinking you know your family's story, believing in the people you love and trust, only to have everything suddenly shaken in one shocking moment. That is exactly what happened to Tom. One day he believed he was the son of Andrew Parker BS, a man he called his father. Then, in a courtroom full of people with cameras flashing and whispers all around, Tom heard a DNA test prove that the man he thought was his father might not be his real dad at all. For anyone, that would be hard to handle. For Tom, it was a heavy, heartbreaking blow. Friends and insiders close to Tom say that this experience has been emotionally crushing for him. It's not just the surprise or the shock. It's the deep sadness and confusion that come after. Tom is reportedly heartbroken and struggling to process everything. The sudden change in what he believed about his family has left him feeling lost. People close to him say he is taking time away from the public eye, trying to rest and heal both his body and his mind. The collapse he had in court was not just a physical reaction. It showed just how deeply this news affected him. This situation has shaken Tom to his core. It's hard to imagine how he must feel every day. He's not angry only because of the DNA test result itself, but because of what it means about the years before. For so long, the truth stayed hidden. For so many years, Tom lived believing in a certain story about his family, only to find out it might have been different all along. Friends say Tom feels betrayed by the silence. If someone knew the truth, why didn't they tell him sooner? Why did he have to find out this way in a courtroom with cameras capturing every moment? These are questions that weigh heavily on him. The silence feels like a painful betrayal, a secret kept from him when maybe it should have been shared. Tom's relationship with Queen Camilla, his mother, is now facing a lot of pressure. This revelation raises difficult and painful questions. Was she hiding this truth all along? Did she protect this secret to keep her image safe? Could she have done things differently to protect her son? These questions may never have clear answers, and that uncertainty makes it even harder for Tom. Whatever the truth is, the situation has changed their relationship forever. The trust between mother and son is being tested in a way that many people can't fully understand. This moment is not just a royal scandal or a headline about famous people. It is the story of a man trying to find where he belongs in a world that suddenly feels strange and confusing. Tom is now facing an identity crisis, wondering who he is and where he comes from. The very foundation of his life, the family he thought he had, is now uncertain. That can be a lonely and painful place to be. Behind the scenes, Tom is trying to piece his life back together. He's surrounded by friends and family who want to support him, but nothing can erase the shock he felt or the questions that keep coming back. Every day is a struggle to understand and accept a new reality. The public might see only the scandal and gossip, but Tom's reality is filled with personal pain and emotional challenges that no one can fully see or fix. In moments like this, people need space and time to heal. Tom's story reminds us that behind every headline about royalty or scandal, there is a real person with feelings, fears, and hopes. While the world debates the secrets and mysteries of the palace, Tom is living through the very human experience of loss, confusion, and the search for truth. This chapter of his life is far from over. The road ahead may be difficult, but hopefully with time, Tom will find peace and clarity. He may even find strength in facing the truth, no matter how hard it is. What we can all take away from his story is a reminder of the importance of honesty, compassion, and support, especially when life changes in ways we never expected. This story may have started in a quiet courtroom, but it's echoing across the world now. What began as a simple DNA result has turned into one of the biggest royal shocks in recent history, and it's far from over. Tom Parker BS, once known simply as Queen Camilla's son, is now at the center of a mystery that could change how we see the royal family. He's not just dealing with public attention, he's facing personal pain, deep questions, and the struggle to understand who he is. As for Queen Camilla, the truth threatens to undo years of careful image building. A single test has brought back old doubts, old scandals, and new questions, and the public is watching closely. The royal family has always tried to appear strong, polished, and perfect, but stories like this remind us that they're human too, full of secrets, emotions, and mistakes. What happens behind palace walls doesn't always stay hidden forever. So, what happens next? Will the real father step forward? Will the palace respond? Will this story bring more hidden truths to light? No one knows for sure, but one thing is clear. The world is watching, and the truth has already begun to change everything. Stay tuned as we continue to follow this incredible story, one that proves no matter how high your title, some secrets just can't stay buried.